Good evening. I am the narrator, and welcome to my parlor. Tonight's story is Administration. A fish out of water, one who leaves his environs for new ones and struggles to adapt. One who suffocates to death. Not literally, though he dislikes it. I was 22, having just graduated college. My water was the small town where I was born and raised. My new environs were the city, where I had never been before. The town had no jobs in my field, so I had to move. Though daunted, I had energy and enthusiasm, the verve of youth. The city, I should note, lacked one's perks. It was not a cultural center nor a tourist magnet. Its reputation was well known, but not well founded, the reason unexplained. I was undeterred. I did not own a car, so arrived by train. The other passengers seemed like normal folk, no different from my friends and neighbors. The train and station, though outdated, were clean and well maintained. I felt the city's reputation was undeserved, a myth of provincial minds. I chuckled aloud, drawing looks, and was not in the least concerned. I had rented a downtown apartment and would walk. The day was pleasant, and I had to explore. With a map bought at the station, I went forth. My survey impressed me. Its buildings towered, buildings I had seen only in photographs and paintings. My excitement grew. Would I one day work in one? Would I one day own one? I gazed up into their windows, seeing workers at their desks, seeing myself in their place. But for now, I would accept my current accommodations. No matter. If I could thrive in a dorm, I could in apartments. Soon I was able to test this theory. They appeared just ahead. I recognized the building from its brochure, large, blocked, with rows of curtained windows and the name in italics, and I strode forth. A first-time renter, I opened the door, not knowing what to do. Luckily, a man sat at a desk in a black tie and blazer. "Hello," he greeted, without looking up, without eye contact. I was surprised. A new tenant was a potential friend. This, I reasoned, was likely just his way. "I'm the new tenant," I told him. "Ah, yes." He handed me my key and turned, leaving me to my own devices. I could accept disinterest, but not discourtesy. He should have walked me to my door, showed me its location. I meant to discuss him with my neighbors once we met. Likely he treated them the same, and I would be advised to just accept it. I could, with some reluctance. Luckily, my key bore my floor and number. I came to an elevator and pressed the button. The door did not open. "It's only there for show," someone called. "Who said that?" I asked aloud, startling. Whatever. Again, I accepted it. I would have liked convenience, but was young and able-bodied. I found the stairs at the end of the hall and ascended. As I stepped, I thought of those I would meet, both in and outside the building. I was eager to befriend them, to hear of them and their experiences in the city. At the stairhead came my first chance. Across the hall, a door opened and a man emerged in a beige suit and trousers. He turned and headed forth. "Howdy," I greeted. He trudged right past me. Though disappointed, I would not allow it to affect me. I'd been in the city less than an hour, and thus far had met only him and the manager. I saw the city's speed, so much faster than my town's. I understood the stress on local residents. Tonight I'll go out, I thought. First, I would have to ready my apartment. Luckily, my room was on the far end, across from the man's. Unless this is the wrong key. It wasn't. My door opened. I stood in the precipice and stared inside. It was much as expected, small and bare, with one bathroom, one bedroom, one kitchenette, and a large window on the side wall, like my room at home, but with more. Except now, I won't have to walk downstairs to snack, I thought. Before I left, I had called movers and arranged for my effects to be packed in a moving truck and driven there. Then it would truly be my room. They would not arrive for an hour. Until then, I had nothing to do. I knew no one, and had an hour. Naturally, I could not stray far. I'll walk the halls, I reasoned. Maybe I'll meet someone. Off I went. I checked my watch and would again. I could only imagine being stood up for a paying gig. That, and to sleep on the floor. I smiled as I walked. At the end of the hall, two others intersected. Both were empty. There was no one. Undeterred, I descended the steps. In the front office, the manager was absent, his desk empty. He probably had to check on something, I thought. There were two more halls, empty as those above. Maybe I'm the only one who lives here, I wondered. I could have tested the theory. I could have walked to the doors and craned my ears. But I regarded others' privacy, and obviously I wasn't. I had seen the man. What then to do? The laundry room, I thought, a light bulb flickering on in my mind. Laundry is a must. Someone had to be doing theirs, if not at that moment, then at others. But where was the laundry room? I had been everywhere in the building and had not seen it. Then I noticed the left hall opened to the side. Off I went for the second time. I passed a second empty hall and my destination appeared. The laundry room was as expected, a single door with a washer, a dryer, a coin dispenser, and a cart. However, it was abandoned. I shook my head and turned, taking one thing with me, its location. Now, I needed only to know how to clean laundry. Again, I did not allow this to bother me. I've only been here an hour, I recalled. The city is vast. I returned to the lobby where the manager had returned, likewise. Again, he did not address me. He did not even look. If he asked what I was doing, I would have gladly answered. I'm just making the rounds and introducing myself, I told him, pausing at his desk. Don't waste your time, he whispered. His head was down as if he was deliberately avoiding my eyes. Why? I asked. He did not respond. My enthusiasm was fading. I checked my watch. The truck would soon arrive. We had agreed to meet in the lobby where I already stood. My moving truck will soon be here, I said. The mover and I are going to meet in this lobby. Or right outside it, I should say. Again, he did not respond. I turned and watched through the window. The wee-haul truck appeared. Its driver looked visibly unnerved. Puzzled, I walked outside and approached. Hello, I said, waving from the sidewalk. Like the manager, he said nothing. He only nodded and avoided my eyes. Could you help me? This was, after all, why he was hired. He nodded and pressed the release button. The back door rolled open. Help unloading? I asked. No response. Could you at least stay until I've unloaded everything? He nodded. The work strained my every fiber. The man did nothing, only stayed in his cab, looking uneased. When I finished, I withdrew my wallet. He pressed the button, closed the door. Zap, gone in a blaze. I stood, holding my dollars, breathing dust. Pedestrians passed, none seemed to notice. And they seemed to have changed from the way people were on the train. I overlooked this and returned to the lobby. Again, the manager was there, and I ignored him. I marched past him into my hall, where the same man reappeared. I ignored him likewise. When I closed my door, I locked it, though never had at home. Why? The place was near abandoned, and neither man seemed threatening. It was a feeling, a sensation I could not then explain. There I stood, alone, surrounded by familiar items. It was like home, but wasn't. Home, I murmured. For a moment I longed to return. However, I hadn't come for nothing, and would return on vacation in 1 week. Until then, I could make do. Luckily, I had work. Growing up in a small town, I'd long known the dangers of idle hands. I unboxed my furniture and replicated my bedroom best I could. When finished, I surveyed it. The apartment was not perfect, but sufficed. Then I saw through my window that the sun had set. It's time, I thought. I stepped out, locking the door behind me. I passed the manager and again ignored him. The wind had grown cold and nipped me as I stepped into the night. There I paused on the sidewalk and scanned my surroundings, peering left and right as far as I could in both directions. In both it was the same, streets and sidewalks, empty and quiet as the halls. How? I whispered. How could such a city not be a city at night? Incredulous, I crept forth. My eyes shifted side to side, peering through windows. They were all empty, vacant, not closed for the evening, but simply closed. I was bewildered. By day it bustled, by night it was a ghost town. I then noticed something else, somehow for the first time. The buildings were identical. Each was made of gray cement. Each was brutalist, with equidistant black window and door frames. Each name was above the front door. Each name was similar. Dry cleaning, liquors, hotel, this and that. Each was the work of the same architect. The local government owned and maintained each. It was more than a city, it was a company. I was again bewildered but fascinated. I walked in trance in this strange new world where I seemed the sole inhabitant. I paused at each window, peering in their hollow insides. I thought of those who had criticized my move. What were they trying to warn me of? How did they know, and why did they not tell me? I thought of my apartment. The city was new, at least to me. I did not know where I was going and could not risk getting lost. My fascination was now only morbid. Locals likely retired early for a reason. Whatever it was, I sought not to learn. Alas, curiosity triumphed. I pressed on, passing rows of vacant buildings. No matter my fear, I could not bring myself to return. I turned left and right. In time, I realized if these buildings were empty, they were open, and if they were open, I could enter. Again, I was afraid, but not afraid enough. Here I go, I thought. I gripped a doorknob and tested my theory. To surprise, I was correct. As I had seen, the interior was empty. What's the point? I wondered. I'm already here. I'll walk through and walk out. As I went, I came to sense I was being watched. Someone knew of me and was watching me. This was likely only my imagination, but I still spun and hastened out. Frightened as I was, my fascination kept. I continued, hoping to see something new, something unexpected, something to explain the surrounding strangeness. I saw nothing of the sort, only the same empty buildings. The streets had come to bore me. I was just about to go when, at last, I saw something. I had peered in an alleyway. There were many. There was a descending staircase and a metal railing, a back entrance to a basement. Probably abandoned, I reasoned. At first I had passed it by, then curiosity struck again. I stood at the stairhead and peered downward. Though light was scant, I could see a door at the bottom. I gripped the railing and crept forth, listening for sound and hearing none. Whatever. Creak. My nerves jostled. Someone was there and had seen or heard me. Perhaps they were suspicious. Perhaps they were armed. Those in my town were. Why would the city differ? The sense returned stronger than before. So strong, in fact, my attention was compelled. I stood at the door and peered into darkness. Enter, someone implored. So deep, the sound could not have come from human love. Whatever spell I was under broke. I spun and ran and ran and ran and ran, as far as I could, fast as I could. At last, I reached the front door of my building, by complete accident. For the first time that night, it was a welcome sight. I dashed in. The manager sat at his desk. As I passed him, he looked and watched until I was out of view. I saw this in the corner of my eye, but did not stop to ask. Likely he'd heard me panting outside. I gazed at my belongings and thought again of home. I had been gone for just one day, and it already felt so distant. I slept amidst its artifacts. When I woke, I considered, then declined to stay in bed. My first workday could be positive, my first since arriving. I rose and saw to my hygiene. Then I went, seeing and ignoring both man and manager. Outside, the streets bustled. I studied the pedestrians, their faces, their mannerisms, their clothes, which were all identical. The men wore the same beige suits, ties, and black shoes. The women wore the same beige blouses, skirts, and black shoes. I heeded their speech patterns and vocabulary. Before, I would have been surprised, but after the night before, my suspicions were confirmed. Every one of them looked and acted the same. Their heads were down, their hands were in their pockets. They did not even see me. Am I the only one who's awake? I wondered, for lack of a better term. Still, I soldiered on. Luckily, I had a city map bought at the station, which I think I mentioned earlier. The sights, for lack of a better term, had not changed since I'd arrived. To my relief, I found the place with ease. Maybe my job would distract me from my surroundings. I stood before the building and looked it up and down. Communications, the italics read above the door. When I first applied, I assumed it was simply named for the city. I did not know the city was a company. In any case, I stepped into the lobby. The office was down the hall. At the front desk sat the secretary, who was much like my building manager. Like him, her top was black, not beige, with a black tie. She did not greet me when I entered. She did not even look. The task was mine alone. I was hired recently, and this is my first day. Or it's supposed to be, I said, pausing at her desk. She pointed to the office. I looked and saw an empty cubicle in the far corner. Thank you, I sighed and headed forth. As I walked, I noted my peers. Each was blank and frozen, focused only on their work, dead to their surroundings, like those I'd passed that morning. I imagined every workplace in the city. They all had to be like this. Then I stepped into my cubicle. It was empty. There was a chair and a desk, but no computer, no mouse, no keyboard, no file cabinet. Nothing one would expect. What the hell am I supposed to do? I asked. leaned on the wall and watched my peers. They simply, literally pushed pencils across their desks. At least it's low stress. I sat down, almost amused. Footsteps approach. I turned and saw the secretary holding a pencil identical to theirs. She placed it on my desk, then turned and headed to hers. I picked it up and work commenced. Unlike my peers, I was not content to simply push it, pull it back, and push again. I had to study the tool of my trade. As I did, I noticed it bore no manufacturer logo, only the city's name. At least they buy locally. To my relief, the day ended at last. My peers rose and formed a line, filing out in silence. I watched them disperse, joining a surplus of other drones. Only then did I go. At my apartment, my impressions were unchanged. I thought of home, which I longed for. The city had deceived me, but its critics were correct. It wasn't blighted, it was the blight. I feared if I stayed any longer I would be absorbed. At first, I would have thought this impossible. If anything, my identity had strengthened. But the future cannot be predicted. Time weakens resolve. I'll be gone by then, I vowed. First, I had one task. When I had set the night before, when exploring, the person in the basement had convinced me it was needed. I had seen the city. I needed it to be explained. I waited for sundown and made my play. The manager sat in the front office, stared directly at me, intensely, as if I'd been awaited. I marched past him and glanced over my shoulder. Our eyes met, and I knew he wouldn't watch me until I was out of view. He knew the secret and my goal, but couldn't thwart me. If he'd called the police, they couldn't either. So I soldiered forth through the empty streets and sidewalks, having already explored them. I would return to the steps and crane my ears, only now I would listen. The soon came sooner than expected, far sooner. I felt no time had passed as I reached the alley, then the steps, and then the door. There I hastened down, having no need to be subtle, knowing I would not be interrupted. I opened the door and stepped in, of course leaving it open behind me. The room was black, and at any contents I couldn't see them. Again, I felt watched. If someone was there, I could be seen. "I've arrived," I declared. "Anyone here? Anyone?" No response. "I've arrived," I repeated, louder than before. Creak, a door. Was this a reply, or simply the entrance closing on its own? I turned and saw the door was open. Moonlight showed inside. Creak. Again, as if to focus my attention. It succeeded. I peered back in the recesses. In the far corner, I assumed, was a hole through which dim light shone. It was not the response I sought, but the one I got. Crept forth and saw the outline of a door. Should I open it, or simply barge through? I wondered. Naturally, the former. On the other side was an office, large and spacious, with a chair, a desk, and a massive screen thereon. Its glow was the only light. On the seat slouched a man, his back was turned. On screen were endless feeds showing everything occurring in the city. I stared, transfixed. He had yet to speak or even turn. Hey, I greeted. Quite the gig you have here? No response. Hesitantly, I stepped forth and tapped his shoulder. No response, even to a move most found irritating. Perhaps years there had dulled his senses. Frustrated, I gripped the seat's shoulders and spun it around, and saw what he'd not responded. I was startled, but not surprised. After just 2 days there, nothing did. Only curiosity remained. I poked the corpse's shoulder. In a second, it was dust spread across the chair. Startled again, I began to inch back. Felt as if I were under a spotlight. The feeling returned, even more so. Before, I could blame the atmosphere. Now, that was impossible. I longed to run, but my legs were frozen, as if my feet were anchored to the floor. Anxiety coursed through me, and was soon confirmed. I created the city. I rule the city. Everything you've seen and everything you haven't is mine. Its buildings, its streets, its sidewalks, its inhabitants. The source boomed, louder and deeper than before. Strangely, I was not afraid. In fact, I stood at attention, awaiting what it would say next. Why? For what purpose? I sought to ask, but when I tried to speak, my lips would not move. The words were trapped in my mind. You were drawn here, to the city, not by your own inclination, but at my bidding, it continued. Your job and your apartment were ruses, and you needn't return to either. It is my custom to find a man of worth to oversee its maintenance. I think you agree that you are a man of worth, yes? My speech suddenly returned. I accept. My first words, without hesitation, without thought. Will I share my predecessor's fate? I asked. Not as long as you perform your job correctly. What is the purpose of all this? You'll know in time. Normally I would have found that suspect, but my thoughts then were not normal. My predecessor vanished into the air, as if he were never there. Only his uniform remained, and then it too followed. Normally I would have been shocked. Just then an energy began coursing through me, rippling, with growing intensity. Gradually it subsided. Again, normally I would have been shocked. I gazed down at my arms, my legs, and torso, and saw the uniform. How does it fit? It fits fine, I remarked, honestly. I sat down and watched the screen, the city, the empty streets, the empty sidewalks, the identical buildings with the same numbers of equidistant windows, the night sky, the moon, and the stars. I would not go the next week to see family. They would come to see me.